Hello, how are you? Just a little extra video for you today on your Unit 1 Day 2 notes. So today we covered operations with the calculator, addition, subtraction, and multiplication. Um, Couple targets that we want to go through is the computation um, with addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, absolute value, and exponents. And notice these three are bolded because that's what we're going to focus on today. The rest we're going to focus on the rest of the week. And then using calculator to do basic computation. So for some of you, this calculator is new and we don't know what buttons to press. Like, where's the fraction key? Well, there is no fraction key. So that's what we're going to have to do. Some vocabulary words that we are going to be focusing on are sum, difference, product, equation, and variable. Okay, so those should all be very familiar to you. And we're going to be paying attention to this graph here at the top. Okay, so a lot of you maybe have gone hiking with family or on vacation, and they say you're at sea level or you're 40 feet above sea level or negative 40 feet below sea level. Okay, so it's just kind of how to read this map with a number line that gives you positive and negative. Okay, and we're going to be talking about elevation. Okay, elevation is how far are you from that sea level point. Okay, so it says, what is the elevation of the picnic area? So if you find the picnic area, it's right here. You're going to go over on that map to the scale, and it says 0, and 0 represents sea level. So the elevation of the picnic area is 0, or we can say sea level. The elevation of the water fountain is right here. Okay, so again, we're going to move it over, and it's at negative 40, and we would say negative 40 feet, or we can say it's 40 feet below sea level. Okay, and this is the way I would like to see it, 40 feet below sea level, meaning it's negative. And then the last one is the telescopes are all the way up here, and those are at 80. So it'd be 80 feet or 80 feet above sea level. Okay, so the next group says, describe Josh's change in elevation using complete sentences. Use the words increase or decrease in your answer. So obviously, if we're going from the picnic area to the telescopes, our numbers are going up, correct? So that means you're increasing in your elevation. But if he's headed down, like let's say they had their picnic and they're going back down to the beginning of the trail, their elevation's going down, so it's decreasing. So that's how we have to use those words. The first one is Josh travels from the beginning of the trail to the water fountain. Okay, so beginning of the trail to the water fountain. So beginning of the trail, and they move up to the water fountain. What happened? Did he move up or did he move down? Okay, and in this one, he moved up. He started at negative 60 feet below sea level and made it to negative 40. So he went up 20 feet. So in complete sentences, we would say Josh's elevation increased by 20 feet. Okay, it increased by 20 feet. The next one is Josh travels from the large lake to the water fountain. So the large lake is here at 70, all the way down to the water fountain at negative 40. So notice how he's going down. So we know his elevation is decreasing, but how many is he going down by? He's going down by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110. So we could say Josh then decreased because he went down by 110 feet. And lastly, Josh travels from the beginning of the trail to the small lake. Beginning of the trail here at negative 60 to the small lake, which is at 40. So he's going up, which means his elevation is increasing, and he's increasing by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So lastly, Josh's elevation increased by 100 feet. I'm sorry, 100, not 110. Here's one more question about the graph. You can look at the one on your paper, but it says, where does Josh have a bigger change in elevation? Moving from the water fountain to the beginning of trail, it looks like he's only moving 20 feet in the change of elevation. From the picnic area to the small lake, it looks like he's moving about 40 feet, and I'm just approximating. And from the large lake to the small lake, it looks about 30. And then from the beginning of the trail to the picnic area, it looks he's moving about 60 feet. Okay, either increased or decreased, he's still moving that same amount. So D is going to be our answer. Now we're going to move on to some computation review. This should all be review, okay? So don't think that, or don't freak out if you don't know it. It's okay. It really is just for you as an introduction to the calculator. Okay, so it's computation review, some vocabulary. Adding is finding a sum. Subtracting is finding a difference, and multiplying is finding a product. So those words, if you see them, that's what they mean. Sum means add, difference means subtract, and product means multiply. Okay, so find the sum or difference. Use keep, flip, change. I hope you remember that. KFC, when necessary. Make sure if you use your calculator that you're using the correct minus button. Okay, so in problem number 1, I'm going to show you how to type this in your calculator. This is -4. A lot of people want to go to this button right here. If you see my cursor hover over it, that's the subtraction key. That's not the minus button. The minus button is right down here next to the decimal point and 0. So you would type -4, okay? And I'm going to type this big one, the subtraction key. See how the difference in size? Minus is always smaller, subtraction is always going to be bigger, okay? So, -4 plus 13. Okay, so these are your 4 main operations. There's your minus or negative key, and we're going to hit enter, and our answer is 9. Okay, now you don't have to use this if you know all of the computations by heart, so that's fine. If you want to use your calculator, that's okay. Otherwise, go ahead and use the mental math that you know. Okay, so again, negative key is right down here, and then 1, 2 plus 7, and that gives you -5. So if you want to pause your computer, go ahead and finish the rest of these. I'm going to put them up in just a second, but you can use the calculator if you like, or mental math. That is fine. So notice here on number 3, I have, it was -7 minus 5. This keep, flip, change. Remember, you keep the first term, flip the second term, so it's like if it's negative, it's now positive, and then change the last term to negative or positive, whichever it is. I kept number 9 blank because it has 2 negative signs, so 6 minus a -10. Remember, you can double sweep that. Okay, so 6 is now 6 plus 10 to give us 16. When we multiply negatives, so we have a product is negative if it has an odd number of negative factors, and a product is positive if it has an even number of negative factors. Okay, and I'll explain that in a second. But there's 3 ways to represent multiplication. You can use the dot, you can use parentheses, or you can use this little star. Okay, you are not allowed to use the x anymore for multiplication. So our rules for sign, if we have an even number of negatives, your answer will be positive. If you have an odd number of negatives, your answer will be negative. So here you only have one, so we can say right away that our answer is going to be negative. And then you just do the operation 4 times 5, which is 20. In problem number 2, you have an even number of negatives, so they basically cancel out. So you're going to have an even answer, therefore you can just go ahead and multiply across. 2 times 5 is 10, times 3 is 30. In 3, you have one negative, which means you're going to have a negative answer. And then you can go ahead and just multiply across. 2 times 4 is 8, times 5 is 40. So your answer is negative 40. So go ahead and try the next 3. Go ahead and check your answers here at the bottom. And let's move on to everyone's favorite, fractions. So our fraction review, when we're adding fractions with a common denominator, when we're adding or subtracting fractions, first there must be a common denominator. And if you don't know what that is, it means the number on the bottom is matching. Okay, it's common between the fractions. Then add the numerator. And the denominator does not change. So in problem number 1, notice our denominator is matching, therefore it does not change. You can just bring it over, and then you add the top numbers. See if you can simplify. If you can't, you can move on. So then in problem number 2, if you see that your denominator is matching, you again can just bring it over into your answer and then add your top number. So 2 plus 4 is 6. Look to see if you can simplify. If not, move on. In 3, they match, so we're going to bring over our denominator, and then you add the top numbers. 3 plus 5 is 8. Since you can simplify 8 over 4 to 2 over 1, 2 over 1 would be the correct answer. In problem number 4, again, your denominator matches. Add the top. This one doesn't simplify easily, but 2 goes into both the top and the bottom, so we can say our answer is 2/3. If you do not have a common denominator, you'll need to multiply your fraction to get one, or wait until tomorrow and I'll show you how to type it into your calculator. When we're multiplying fractions, you always multiply across, then simplify. Okay, so top times top, bottom times bottom, even if they're matching or not matching. So 1 times 4 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9. Look to see if you can simplify. If you can, do it. If not, you are done. Again, number 2, top times top, bottom times bottom. 5 times 4 is 20. 8 times 5 is 40. Okay, this simplifies, our zeros cancel, so now it's 2 over 4, which gives us 1/2. Since in number 3 we have a whole number times a fraction, remember every whole number can be made into a fraction by putting it over 1. Then you multiply top times top, bottom times bottom. So 10 times 1 is 10. 1 times 4 is 4. And again, 2 goes into both of these, so we have to divide by top and bottom each by 2. And so you have 5 halves. Last thing we're going to talk about today is evaluate the expression for the given variable. These are 2 more vocabulary words. Expression means you have a problem with no equal sign. Variable means you have a letter that represents a number. Okay, so we have to evaluate the expression 7m when m is 9. So it helps to go through our original expression, 7m, and put parentheses wherever that variable is. After that, you're going to go ahead and substitute in that m is 9 into the parentheses. That's because that's what m equals. And then you're going to multiply. So 7 times 9 is 63. So again, wherever you see the variable, put parentheses, and that's where that number goes in. So k is 8 in this problem, so you're going to substitute the 8 into the parentheses.